Michael was a quiet boy. Even as a young child, he loved reading books more than playing outside. While other children ran around in the park or played video games, Michael would sit in his small room with a book in his hands. He loved stories about faraway places, heroes, and people who changed the world. Sometimes he would imagine himself as one of those heroes, saving the day or discovering something amazing. But school was not easy for Michael. From the very first day, he noticed that some classmates did not like him. They called him names like loser or weird. They laughed at him when he tried to answer questions in class, or when he walked slowly in the hallways. Michael did not have many friends. The few friends he had were also quiet and liked similar things like drawing or reading. But most kids wanted to play sports or joke around, and Michael often felt left out. Every day at school was a challenge. During recess, the other children would run and play games, but Michael often stayed alone. Sometimes he would bring his books outside and sit under a tree, pretending the pages were full of adventures. Other times, he would try to join the games, but he was not very good at sports, and the kids would laugh at him. He felt small and ignored. At home, things were different. Michael's parents loved him very much and tried to encourage him. His mother would say, "Michael, you are smart. One day, people will see your talents." His father would often give him small tasks around the house, teaching him patience and hard work. Even so, Michael sometimes felt sad and wondered why the other children were so mean to him. He wished he could be more like them, popular and strong. School projects were especially hard. When the teacher asked the class to work in groups, Michael often ended up alone or with children who were not very kind. Sometimes they would ignore his ideas or laugh at his suggestions. One time, he drew a detailed picture of a futuristic city for an art project, and instead of appreciating it, some classmates tore it and threw it on the floor. Michael felt hurt, but he did not cry in front of them. He quietly picked up the pieces and went home, hiding his feelings from everyone. Despite the bullying, Michael never gave up on learning. He spent hours in the library after school, reading about science, history, and famous inventors. He dreamed of one day becoming someone important, someone people could admire. He wrote stories about heroes who faced challenges and never gave up. These stories made him feel stronger, even if the world around him felt unfair. Michael also had a small group of true friends who supported him. They shared books, games, and laughter. With them, he could be himself. They talked about dreams, school, and life. Even though they were few, they reminded Michael that kindness exists in the world. He learned from them that it is not always the loudest or strongest person who matters, but the person who has courage and a good heart. Sometimes the teasing made Michael angry. He wanted to stand up for himself, to shout at the children who mocked him, but he was afraid of making things worse. So he chose to stay calm, thinking that one day he would show everyone that he was not weak. This decision to remain patient and focused on his own growth would shape his future in ways he could not yet imagine. At home, Michael would often tell his parents about his day, but he did not always tell them everything. He did not want them to worry. His parents noticed the sadness in his eyes and tried to lift his spirits with encouraging words. One day, his mother said, "You will shine, and they will see who you really are." Michael held on to these words, repeating them to himself when school felt too hard. Even though Michael's childhood was full of struggles, he found small joys. He loved drawing, solving puzzles, and imagining new inventions. He collected small objects that fascinated him, like old coins or interesting stones. These hobbies kept him busy and helped him escape from the mean words of others. They were his private treasures, reminding him that life could be beautiful if he looked for the right things. By the time Michael reached the end of elementary school, he had learned an important lesson. Life would not always be fair, but he could control how he responded to it. He could choose to stay kind, work hard, and focus on his dreams, no matter what others said. This lesson became the foundation of his character. Even when others tried to bring him down, he kept believing in himself. Michael's childhood struggles were not easy, but they made him stronger. Every day he faced bullying and loneliness. He learned patience, courage, and determination. These early challenges would later shape the man he became, man ready to succeed, no matter what obstacles stood in his way. High school was supposed to be a fresh start for Michael, but it was not easy. The hallways were bigger, the classrooms were louder, and the crowd of teenagers seemed even more competitive than in elementary school. Michael still loved learning, but he quickly realized that fitting in would be harder than he thought. From the very first day, some students noticed that Michael was quiet and different. They whispered behind his back, called him names, and sometimes laughed at him in front of everyone. They labeled him as the class loser, and the nickname spread like wildfire. Michael tried to ignore it, telling himself that school was temporary and the opinions of others did not define him. But deep down, the words stung. During classes, Michael worked hard to keep up. He loved math and science, often staying after school to finish experiments or solve extra problems. Teachers noticed his dedication and praised him for his effort, but his classmates were not impressed. Some mocked him for reading textbooks instead of talking about sports or parties. Lunch breaks were especially hard. While other students shared jokes and plans for the weekend, Michael would sit alone, sometimes reading or drawing quietly in his notebook. Despite the teasing, Michael refused to let it control him. He joined the school's science club, hoping to meet others who shared his interests. There, he found a few friends who were also curious and loved learning. They built small robots, designed experiments, and even entered science competitions. These friends became Michael's safe space, a place where he could be himself without fear of ridicule. Together they laughed, learned, and dreamed about the future. Sports, however, remained a challenge. Michael was not very athletic, and gym class was always stressful. During one PE lesson, the coach asked Michael to run laps with the rest of the team. Some students whispered that he would be the slowest, and a few even deliberately tried to trip him. Michael's face turned red with embarrassment, but he kept running. He finished the laps, breathing heavily, but proud that he had not given up. That small victory gave him courage, showing him that persistence mattered more than speed or strength. High school was also full of social events that Michael struggled to enjoy. Parties, dances, and gatherings often excluded him. He watched from the edges, feeling invisible. Sometimes he tried to attend, hoping to connect with others, but it was difficult to break into groups that had known each other for years. He felt lonely, but he did not let loneliness stop him from dreaming. He wrote stories, studied extra lessons, and worked part-time jobs to save money for his future. Michael's family noticed his struggles and supported him. His parents encouraged him to focus on his goals rather than on the cruelty of others. "People will not always understand you," his father said, "but your effort and heart will take you far." Michael remembered these words every day. They became a shield against the mean comments, helping him stay focused on his dreams instead of the negativity around him. Despite the challenges, Michael began to notice small successes. He scored high marks in his favorite subjects, impressed teachers with his projects, and even won a science award for creating a small solar-powered device. These achievements gave him confidence, showing him that hard work could lead to real results. The classmates who mocked him began to see that he was more than just a quiet boy. They could not understand the dedication and intelligence that Michael carried quietly inside him. However, the teasing never completely stopped. Some students tried to embarrass him in front of the whole class, spreading rumors or making jokes about his hobbies and interests. Michael learned to face these situations with calm and patience. He refused to react angrily, knowing that anger would only give them satisfaction. Instead, he focused on improving himself, letting his actions speak louder than the words of others. Through these experiences, Michael learned important lessons. He realized that true strength was not about being the fastest, the loudest, or the most popular. Real strength was about staying true to yourself, working hard, and having courage even when people laughed at you. He discovered that friendship could be found in unlikely places, and that people who believed in him were more important than those who tried to bring him down. By the time Michael reached the end of high school, he had grown quietly but steadily. The boy who once felt invisible had learned to stand tall in his own way. He understood that life would continue to have challenges, but he was ready to face them. His high school years, full of teasing, loneliness, and small victories, shaped him into a person determined to succeed, no matter what obstacles lay ahead. Michael's high school struggles were not just about surviving bullying. They were about learning resilience, patience, and self-belief. These lessons would guide him as he moved forward into adulthood, laying the foundation for the success and confidence he would show years later. After high school, Michael stepped into a new world. College felt different. There were no familiar classrooms or teachers, and the people were strangers. At first he felt nervous, remembering how he had been teased and left out in school. But this new beginning also brought hope. Michael believed that hard work and dreams could change his life. Michael chose to study business because he was fascinated by how companies worked and how people created something from nothing. The first semester was challenging. Classes were long, textbooks were heavy, and assignments piled up quickly. Some students seemed to understand everything instantly, while Michael had to work late into the night to finish his tasks. It was exhausting, but he didn't give up. He reminded himself of the promise he had made years ago, to never let the bullying define him and to prove his own worth through action. College life was not just about studying. Michael had to manage his time carefully. He worked part-time jobs at local stores and cafes, earning money to pay for books and small living expenses. Many students spent money freely on parties or gadgets, but Michael had a strict plan. Every penny he earned went toward his education and his dreams. While others might have laughed at his careful planning, Michael knew that discipline was a key part of success. Even with all the pressure, Michael never lost his curiosity. He loved learning beyond the textbooks. He attended extra workshops, listened to podcasts about entrepreneurship, and read books about famous business leaders. He often stayed late in the library, not just to study for exams, but to learn skills that would help him in the real world. Slowly, he began to understand that knowledge, hard work, and patience were more powerful than popularity or social approval. Despite his dedication, life was not always easy. Michael faced failures that sometimes made him doubt himself. A project he worked on for weeks could fail, or a part-time job might pay less than expected. There were moments when he felt exhausted and alone. But Michael had learned something important from his childhood. Even when people laughed at him or doubted him, he could control his own effort and attitude. He kept moving forward, step by step, refusing to be stopped by temporary setbacks. Michael's friends in college became an important support system. Unlike high school, many students respected hard work and intelligence. They encouraged him, shared ideas, and sometimes even collaborated on projects. With these friends, Michael learned the importance of teamwork and mentorship. He discovered that success was not just about individual effort. It was about learning from others and helping them too. These friendships strengthened his confidence and reminded him that kindness and collaboration were always more powerful than mockery. During these years, Michael also started thinking about his future beyond college. He dreamed of creating something meaningful, maybe a business that could solve problems and help people. He took small steps toward this dream, experimenting with ideas, writing business plans, and saving money. Every small success, like earning a little profit from a mini project or impressing a teacher with his work, added fuel to his determination. He realized that dreams alone were not enough. They needed hard work, planning, and perseverance. Michael's family continued to support him from afar. His parents were proud of his dedication, even though they sometimes worried he was pushing himself too hard. "Your effort will never go to waste," his mother reminded him. "One day, the world will see what you are capable of." These words became Michael's quiet motivation, echoing in his mind when challenges seemed overwhelming. Over time, Michael began to notice the results of his hard work. Grades improved, teachers gave him praise, and small business ideas began to take shape. Unlike his early school years, success was now visible, tangible, and rewarding. He felt a sense of accomplishment that he had never experienced before. This success was not about showing off. It was proof that dedication, patience, and effort could turn dreams into reality. By the end of his college years, Michael had transformed from the shy, bullied boy into a confident young man. He had learned to face challenges head-on, balance work and study, and pursue his goals relentlessly. Most importantly, he had discovered a deep belief in himself, a belief that no words of mockery or moments of failure could destroy. Michael's journey of dreams and hard work taught him one of life's most important lessons. Success is not instant, and life will always have obstacles. But with patience, dedication, and focus, even the quietest, most overlooked person can rise above challenges. He had built a foundation for his future, one that would carry him far beyond the struggles of childhood and high school. 10 years had passed since Michael had walked across his high school stage, diploma in hand, feeling a mix of relief and quiet determination. Life had moved quickly. College had been a whirlwind of late nights, part-time jobs, and small victories. His business ideas were taking shape, and Michael had slowly built a reputation as someone reliable, intelligent, and hardworking. Yet he never forgot the challenges he faced as a child or the bullying he endured in high school. One sunny morning, as Michael checked his mail, he noticed an envelope with a familiar school logo. Curiosity made him pause. Inside was an invitation to his 10-year high school reunion. He read the details carefully, the date, the venue, and the list of activities. At first, he felt a mixture of excitement and hesitation. A reunion could be an opportunity to reconnect with old friends. But it also reminded him of the students who had mocked him, called him names, and made his school years painful. He remembered the cruel nickname, class loser. It had followed him through high school, whispered in classrooms, shouted in hallways, and sometimes even carved into the memory of his childhood. For a moment, Michael wondered why anyone would invite him now. Was it genuine, or was there something else behind this invitation? As the days passed, Michael learned that some classmates had secretly planned to invite him with the hope of embarrassing him in front of everyone. The thought made him smile quietly. He had expected this in some way. Yet instead of anger, Michael felt calm. He understood that their intentions could no longer control his life. The shy, lonely boy they once knew had grown into a confident, successful man. This reunion was not about proving them wrong. It was about showing himself how far he had come. Michael decided he would attend the reunion, but in his own unique way. He wanted to make a statement, not through words of revenge, but by demonstrating that perseverance and self-belief matter more than mockery. He began planning quietly, keeping his intentions to himself. Unlike the students who thrived on gossip and popularity, Michael thrived on preparation, determination, and creative thinking. Weeks passed, and the day of the reunion approached. Michael's excitement grew, but he also felt a quiet thrill. He had arranged something unusual for his entrance. He wanted to arrive in a way that would reflect his journey. The boy who had once been overlooked now had the courage to make a grand, confident entrance. He booked a helicopter to land near the venue. The plan was bold, unexpected, and perfectly symbolic. Meanwhile, his former classmates were unaware of Michael's plans. Many of them expected the same shy, quiet boy they had once teased. Some even whispered among themselves, joking about how the loser would show up. They did not know that Michael had spent the last decade building skills, knowledge, and confidence that could not be measured by high school popularity. On the morning of the reunion, Michael dressed carefully in a sharp suit. He looked at himself in the mirror and smiled. The reflection staring back at him was not the timid boy from the past, but a man who had faced challenges, worked hard, and believed in himself. He felt calm, ready, and focused. Today was not about revenge. It was about presence, confidence, and showing that life rewards effort, not cruelty. When Michael arrived at the venue, the helicopter descended gracefully in a nearby field. Guests outside noticed it immediately, stopping their conversations in surprise. Phones came out, capturing the unexpected sight. Michael stepped out, calm and composed, walking toward the reunion hall with quiet confidence. There were whispers, gasps, and wide eyes. The same students who had once laughed at him could not believe their eyes. The boy they had mocked was now someone impressive, composed, and dignified. Inside the reunion, Michael greeted teachers and old friends warmly. He spoke with genuine interest, laughed when appropriate, and shared stories of his journey without arrogance. The students who had once intended to humiliate him found themselves struggling to respond. Michael's presence alone was powerful. He had turned the tables not with anger, but with success, self-respect, and confidence. By the end of the evening, Michael had made an impression that no words of mockery could undo. He reminded everyone that life does not stop at high school. Success is not measured by popularity or fleeting judgments. It is measured by perseverance, learning, and believing in oneself. His journey from the bullied boy in the classroom to the confident man arriving by helicopter became a quiet inspiration to those around him. Michael left the reunion that night with a sense of pride, not over the reactions of others, but over the journey he had traveled. The boy who had once been teased and overlooked had grown into a man who valued patience, hard work, and kindness. The reunion was more than an event, it was a milestone, a celebration of personal growth and triumph over the challenges of the past. The day of the reunion had arrived, and excitement buzzed in the air. Former students gathered at the banquet hall, chatting about old memories, sharing jokes, and comparing lives. Many were eager to see who had changed, who had become successful, and who had remained the same. Amidst the laughter and chatter, no one expected a grand entrance that would be unforgettable. Michael had been preparing for this moment quietly. For weeks, he had coordinated with the helicopter company, ensuring everything was perfect. He didn't want to arrive like everyone else. After years of being overlooked, teased, and called names, he knew that this was his chance to make a statement, not of anger, but of presence, confidence, and success. As the clock struck the time listed on the invitation, the first whispers began. A loud, unfamiliar sound echoed in the distance. People stepped outside, curious. Then, from the blue sky, a sleek helicopter appeared, descending gracefully into the nearby field. Phones were lifted, cameras clicked, and jaws dropped. Nobody could believe their eyes. The students who had planned to mock Michael were frozen, unsure how to react. Michael stepped out of the helicopter with calm assurance. He wore a tailored suit that fit perfectly, his posture upright, his gaze steady. There was no arrogance in his walk, only quiet confidence. Every step he took toward the reunion hall carried a story of resilience, hard work, and determination. The boy who had once been ignored, teased, and underestimated was now someone impossible to ignore. Inside the hall, the atmosphere changed instantly. Conversations paused, whispers filled the room, and curious eyes followed Michael as he entered. Some students who had once laughed at him shifted uncomfortably, realizing that this was no ordinary reunion guest. Their plan to embarrass him had backfired before it even began. Michael's presence itself told a story, one of growth, perseverance, and success. He greeted former teachers first, shaking hands warmly and thanking them for their guidance. Teachers smiled, proud to see the shy boy they had encouraged so many years ago standing tall and confident. Michael then moved to greet old friends, those few who had always supported him. There were hugs, laughter, and moments of genuine connection. In that room, he felt a mix of nostalgia and triumph, knowing that he had changed the narrative of his life. Meanwhile, the classmates who had intended to mock him were at a loss. They had imagined a timid, awkward entrance, a boy still trapped by his past insecurities. Instead, they saw a man who radiated poise, intelligence, and self-assurance. Some whispered to each other, trying to understand how Michael had transformed so completely. Others felt embarrassed, realizing that their cruel intentions had no power over someone who had worked so hard to rise above them. Michael walked through the room with grace, acknowledging greetings, but never flaunting his success. He knew that true triumph was quiet. It did not need to belittle others. Yet every step he took, every smile he gave, subtly showed that he was no longer defined by the labels of the past. The nickname class loser no longer held any weight. He had rewritten his story entirely, using patience, courage, and relentless effort. The impact of Michael's entrance went beyond shock. It inspired reflection. Some classmates whispered among themselves, realizing that life is unpredictable. Popularity in high school was fleeting, but resilience, dedication, and self-belief could create a future beyond imagination. Michael had demonstrated that mockery, jealousy, and meanness could never stop someone who refused to give up on their dreams. As the night went on, Michael shared his journey with those curious enough to ask. He spoke about his college struggles, part-time jobs, and the lessons he learned about persistence and self-belief. He did not boast. He simply shared his story honestly, hoping to encourage others to pursue their goals, no matter how difficult life might seem. People listened, captivated not just by his success, but by the courage it took to overcome years of bullying and doubt. By the end of the evening, Michael had changed the mood of the reunion completely. The boy they had once mocked had become a symbol of perseverance and success. He left the hall with quiet satisfaction, knowing that he had faced the past without bitterness and had made a statement that words alone could never convey. The helicopter that brought him was only a symbol. The real triumph was in the journey that led him there, the years of hard work, learning, and self-belief that transformed a class loser into a man of confidence and respect. After the reunion, Michael felt a quiet sense of achievement. It wasn't just about arriving in a helicopter or surprising his former classmates. It was about the journey that had brought him here. For years he had faced ridicule, loneliness, and doubt. Yet he had chosen a path of hard work, patience, and belief in himself. Now he was living proof that perseverance could transform a life. The weeks following the reunion brought a new wave of attention. Former classmates and even teachers reached out to Michael, curious about his journey. Some asked for advice about careers and business, while others wanted to understand how he had turned challenges into strengths. Michael realized that success was not just about money or status, it was about influence and inspiration. By simply living his life with integrity, he could motivate others to pursue their dreams, no matter their past struggles. Michael's career had grown steadily over the years. The skills he had learned in college, combined with his relentless effort, allowed him to launch a successful business. At first, it was small, just a startup with a handful of employees, but Michael treated every detail seriously. He studied markets, listened to customers, and built a team that shared his vision. Unlike high school, where teamwork was often about popularity, Michael now led a team that respected each other's ideas and worked together toward common goals. Success brought new challenges, but Michael faced them with the same determination he had shown as a child. There were late nights managing the business, difficult decisions about finances, and moments of uncertainty when projects did not go as planned. Yet, he had learned that obstacles were part of life, not reasons to give up. Every problem became an opportunity to learn and grow. Michael remembered his younger self, the boy who had been teased and overlooked, and he wanted to prove to himself more than anyone else that he could rise above adversity. Confidence was not something Michael had overnight. It had been built slowly, through years of small victories and consistent effort. Each success, whether a project completed or a problem solved, added a layer of self-belief. He no longer needed approval from anyone who had once mocked him. He knew his value, his skills, and his potential. The nickname class loser had lost all meaning. He had redefined himself completely through action, focus, and integrity. Even with his growing success, Michael remained humble. He remembered the teachers who had encouraged him, the friends who had supported him, and the struggles that had shaped him. He often volunteered time to mentor young students, especially those who felt overlooked or bullied. He shared his story not to boast, but to show that challenges do not define a person, how they respond to challenges does. Michael believed that giving back was as important as personal success, and he found joy in helping others discover their potential. Michael's confidence was visible in every aspect of his life. He carried himself with calm assurance, spoke with clarity, and made decisions thoughtfully. People around him noticed the difference between someone who had been handed success and someone who had earned it through perseverance. His colleagues respected his vision, his friends admired his integrity, and even former classmates could not ignore the transformation. The boy they had once mocked had become a man who commanded respect, not through arrogance, but through consistent effort, self-belief, and kindness. With his success came new opportunities. Michael expanded his business, started new projects, and even spoke at events about entrepreneurship and personal growth. He traveled to meet clients and explore new markets, experiencing the world beyond his small hometown. Every achievement reinforced a simple truth: dreams are powerful when paired with hard work and focus. Michael had turned the ridicule of his past into fuel for his ambition, proving that resilience and determination can overcome even the most difficult beginnings. Michael also found personal satisfaction in the quiet moments. He enjoyed reading, reflecting on his journey, and planning the next steps for his life. He realized that success was not a final destination. It was a continuous process of learning, growing, and improving. Confidence, he discovered, was not about being better than anyone else. It was about trusting oneself, staying true to values, and never giving up, even when the world seemed harsh. By the end of this chapter in his life, Michael understood the full meaning of his journey. Confidence and success were not just external, they were internal. They came from overcoming fear, facing challenges, and believing in one's potential. The boy who had once been bullied, ignored, and called a loser had become a man whose story inspired others, a man who proved that life's difficulties could be transformed into strength, and a man who carried his past not as a burden, but as a foundation for triumph. The reunion had ended, but the impact of Michael's presence lingered in the minds of his former classmates. Conversations at the venue still echoed with whispers about the boy who had once been called a class loser, now standing confidently as a successful man. But Michael was not focused on their reactions. He had attended the reunion not for revenge or validation, but to honor his own journey and the lessons he had learned along the way. Walking home that evening, Michael reflected on the path he had taken. He remembered the days when classmates had teased him, when teachers had urged him to believe in himself, and when his parents had patiently encouraged him. Every step of his journey had been a test of patience, courage, and resilience. He realized that respect, true respect, was earned not through titles or flashy entrances, but through consistent effort, integrity, and kindness. Michael thought about his younger self, the shy, quiet boy who had spent hours reading under the tree in the schoolyard. He remembered the sting of cruel words and the loneliness that had sometimes felt unbearable. But he also remembered the small joys, the books he loved, the friends who supported him, and the dreams he held tightly in his heart. Those memories reminded him that even in the hardest moments, hope and determination could carry a person forward. The next few weeks brought messages from classmates and teachers alike. Some expressed genuine admiration for Michael's accomplishments. Others admitted they had underestimated him all those years ago. A few even reached out to ask for guidance, inspired by his story of perseverance. Michael responded warmly to everyone, careful to share his experiences with humility. He knew that success felt most meaningful when it could help others grow. Michael also reflected on how his experiences had shaped the person he had become. The bullying and challenges he faced in childhood and high school had taught him empathy. He understood what it felt like to be overlooked, to be doubted, and to struggle quietly. These lessons became central to his character. He treated people with respect, listened without judgment, and encouraged others to believe in themselves. Michael had learned that respect and kindness were far more valuable than popularity or social approval. One afternoon, Michael received a message from one of the classmates who had been particularly cruel in high school. The message was simple: an apology for the past, and gratitude for showing how hard work and self-belief could change a life. Michael felt a sense of closure. He understood that forgiveness was not about forgetting, but about acknowledging growth, both in himself and in others. This moment reminded him that respect is not just given. It is shared, nurtured, and reciprocated. Michael's journey of reflection also helped him look toward the future. He realized that success was not a final destination, but a continuous journey of learning, giving, and growing. He committed himself to new projects, mentorship, and community work. He wanted to help young people who faced the same struggles he had experienced, showing them that resilience, patience, and focus could transform their lives. Through this, Michael turned his own story of hardship into a beacon of hope for others. Despite all the attention and admiration, Michael remained grounded. He knew that the reunion was only a snapshot in a much larger life story. True fulfillment came from everyday choices, staying kind, working diligently, and nurturing dreams even when circumstances seemed difficult. He remembered the quiet determination of his younger self, and felt proud that he had honored it through action, not just words. Looking back on the past decade, Michael saw a clear truth. Life does not measure a person by the labels given to them in childhood or adolescence. Life rewards persistence, courage, and the willingness to grow through challenges. Michael's story from a lonely, bullied boy to a confident, respected man was proof that anyone could rise above their circumstances with effort, self-belief, and integrity. As he sat quietly one evening, Michael reflected on the reunion and the lessons he had learned. The respect he had earned was not about showing up in a helicopter, wearing a fine suit, or impressing others. The true respect came from years of dedication, quiet determination, and unwavering belief in himself. It came from overcoming every obstacle, turning every insult and doubt into motivation, and using his experiences to inspire and uplift others. Michael's journey concluded not with revenge or resentment, but with peace and pride. The boy who had once been mocked and overlooked had become a man who could inspire, lead, and support. He had transformed not just his life, but also the way others perceived him. His story was a reminder that struggles can become strength, challenges can become lessons, and kindness, focus, and persistence always outshine cruelty. In the end, Michael walked into his future with confidence, humility, and a clear vision. The reunion was just one chapter in a life defined by growth, respect, and purpose. His past, once filled with pain, had become the foundation for a remarkable journey, a journey that would continue to inspire and remind everyone that no obstacle is too great when courage and determination lead the way.